Jade Morgan's heart nearly stopped as she stared at the disaster unfolding in the lobby of the Harrington, the boutique hotel she'd managed for the past 3 years. A pipe had burst overnight, flooding the marble entrance with 2 inches of water that now glistened ominously under the crystal chandeliers. "I can fix this," she muttered to herself, phone already pressed to her ear as she dialed the emergency plumber. "I have to fix this." Her assistant manager, Eliza, splashed through the water in rain boots, clipboard clutched to her chest. "The penthouse suite guest arrives in 4 hours. What do we do?" Jade took a deep breath, her mind racing through contingency plans. At 29, she'd built a reputation for handling crises with grace at the Harrington, a 40-room luxury boutique hotel nestled in San Francisco's historic district. The property was owned by a hospitality group based in New York, and Jade knew her career hinged on maintaining its impeccable standards. "Call the maintenance team and every available staff member." "We're going to need all hands on deck," Jade instructed, already rolling up the sleeves of her tailored blouse. "And check if we can upgrade anyone from the West Wing to free up rooms on the East Side if needed." 3 hours and 58 minutes later, Jade stood behind the reception desk, her navy blue dress impeccably pressed, hair swept into a neat bun, and not a single hint of the morning's chaos visible in her composed demeanor. The lobby gleamed, emergency dehumidifiers hummed discreetly in corners, and fresh floral arrangements masked any lingering dampness in the air. "Crisis averted," Eliza whispered, sliding a guest information card across the polished desk. "The penthouse guest should be arriving any minute." Jade glanced at the reservation details. Mr. Quincy Adams, staying for 5 nights. Just as she finished reviewing the information, the hotel's glass doors swung open. A tall man in his early 30s stepped in, dressed in jeans and a simple black sweater that somehow looked more expensive than most suits Jade had seen. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his fingers through it, and he carried only a leather duffel bag and a laptop case. "That's our penthouse guest," Eliza murmured. "He looks normal." Jade shot her a warning glance before stepping forward with her most professional smile. "Welcome to the Harrington, sir. I hope you had a pleasant journey." The man's eyes, a startling shade of blue, met hers, and Jade felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. He had the kind of face that revealed intelligence rather than conventional handsomeness, though he certainly wasn't lacking in that department either. "The journey was fine, thank you," he replied, his voice carrying a hint of New England in its cadence. "Though I'm afraid I might be a bit early for check-in." "Not at all, Mr. Adams. The penthouse suite is ready for you." Jade maintained her professional demeanor despite noticing how his gaze seemed to linger on her face. "If I could just see some identification, please." As he reached for his wallet, Jade noticed his hand strong, capable, with a thin scar running across his right knuckles. Not the manicured hands of someone who'd never worked a day in his life. "I have to say," he commented as he slid his driver's license across the counter, "the entrance is immaculate. The marble work really catches the light beautifully." Jade froze momentarily, wondering if he somehow knew about the morning's flood. "Thank you. We take great pride in maintaining the historic elements of the building." "It shows," he said, smiling slightly. "Most places this age have warped floors or water damage. This is exceptional." "You have an eye for detail, Mr. Adams," Jade responded, processing his check-in with practiced efficiency. "Are you in construction?" Something like amusement flickered across his face. "Something like that. I appreciate good craftsmanship." Jade handed him the keycard in a leather folder embossed with the hotel's logo. "The elevator to your right will take you directly to the penthouse. Your luggage." "This is all I have," he said, lifting his duffel slightly. "I travel light," Jade nodded. "Well, should you need anything at all during your stay, please don't hesitate to call the front desk. My name is Jade Morgan, and I'm the hotel manager." "Thank you, Miss Morgan." He pocketed the keycard and hesitated, as if considering something. "Actually, could you recommend somewhere nearby for dinner? Somewhere locals might go, not necessarily the tourist spots." The request was common enough, but something about the way he asked direct, without pretension, made Jade want to give him a genuine recommendation rather than the standard upscale tourist traps. "There's a place called Lucetta's 3 blocks east," she offered. "Family-owned Italian, been there for 40 years. No Michelin stars, but the best carbonara you'll ever taste." His smile widened, revealing a slightly crooked incisor that oddly only enhanced his appeal. "That sounds perfect, thank you." As he walked toward the elevator, Jade found herself watching him longer than professionally necessary. There was something intriguing about Quincy Adams that she couldn't quite place. "He seems nice," Eliza commented, appearing beside her. "Not what I expected for someone booking the penthouse for 5 nights. What were you expecting?" Jade asked, returning to her computer. "I don't know, more suits, more assistants, more demands," Eliza shrugged. "He didn't even ask about the spa services or want a tour." Jade smiled. "Not everyone with money needs to announce it, Eliza." What neither woman knew was that Quincy Adams wasn't just a man with money. He was the reclusive founder of Adams Restoration Group, a company that had revolutionized historical building preservation across the country. With a personal net worth exceeding $3 billion, he was one of the wealthiest men in America and one of the most private. The next morning, Jade was conducting her daily inspection of the hotel when she encountered Quincy in the garden courtyard. He sat at a wrought iron table with a cup of coffee and a notebook, sketching something with quick, confident strokes. "Good morning, Mr. Adams," she greeted. "I hope you found your room satisfactory." He looked up, and that same flutter returned to Jade's chest when their eyes met. "More than satisfactory. The preservation of the original moldings is remarkable." "Thank you," Jade said, genuinely pleased. Few guests noticed such details. "The building dates back to 1906, rebuilt after the earthquake. We try to maintain as many original elements as possible while still providing modern comforts." "You've achieved an excellent balance," he said, closing his notebook. "Did you oversee the last renovation?" "Parts of it," Jade admitted. "The previous manager had started the process, but I took over about halfway through." She hesitated, then added, "Actually, we had quite a debate about the fixtures in the bathrooms. The owners wanted something more modern, but I pushed to have reproductions made of the original designs." "Smart choice," Quincy nodded approvingly. Modern fixtures would have clashed with the period details. Jade felt an unexpected surge of pleasure at his validation. "Did you try Lucetta's last night?" "I did. You were right about the carbonara." His expression softened. "The owner came out and insisted I try his grandmother's tiramisu. I think I may have to go back tonight just for that." "Their tiramisu is legendary," Jade agreed, then glanced at her watch. "I should let you enjoy your coffee. Please let me know if you need anything else." As she turned to leave, Quincy spoke again. "Actually, Miss Morgan, I was wondering if I might trouble you for some information about the building's history, for my personal interest." "Of course," Jade replied, surprised by the request. "I have some time this afternoon if that would work." They agreed to meet in the library at 3, and Jade continued her rounds, trying to ignore the unusual excitement she felt at the prospect. That afternoon, Jade brought a leather-bound book containing the hotel's history to the library, a cozy room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a marble fireplace. Quincy was already there, examining the intricate woodwork around the mantel. "This is original, isn't it?" he asked without turning around. "It is," Jade confirmed. "One of the few pieces that survived the 1906 earthquake." She set the book down on a table, and for the next hour they pored over photographs and records of the building's past. Jade found herself repeatedly surprised by Quincy's knowledge of architectural history and restoration techniques. His questions were specific and technical, far beyond casual interest. "You really do know a lot about construction," she commented. Quincy looked slightly embarrassed. "I've worked on a few old buildings. It's something of a passion." "That's refreshing," Jade said, closing the book. "Most of our guests are more interested in the room service menu than the building's heritage." "Their loss," he replied, his eyes warm as they met hers. "Thank you for taking the time to show me this." It was my pleasure, truly, Jade said, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting, shoulders nearly touching as they leaned over the book, the moment stretched between them, something unspoken passing through the air. Then Quincy cleared his throat and stood up. I should let you get back to work. Jade rose as well, smoothing her skirt. Yes, I have a staff meeting soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, Mr. Adams. Quincy, please, he said. Mr. Adams makes me feel like my father. Quincy, she repeated, liking the way his name felt on her lips. Then you must call me Jade. Over the next 3 days, Jade found herself encountering Quincy throughout the hotel in the courtyard, having his morning coffee, in the lobby reading by the fireplace, once even in the small hotel gallery examining the local artwork on display. Each time they fell into easy conversation, and Jade discovered a man unlike any she'd met before. He was knowledgeable without being condescending, interested without being intrusive, and possessed a dry humor that frequently made her laugh. On the 4th day of his stay, disaster struck again. Jade was in her office when Eliza burst in, face pale. The kitchen, she gasped. There's a fire. Jade raced downstairs to find the hotel's small restaurant filled with smoke. The fire itself had been contained to one oven, but the smoke damage was extensive. As the staff and fire department worked to clear the space and assess the damage, Jade's mind was already racing ahead to the logistics nightmare this would create. The restaurant would need to be closed for repairs, which meant 40 guests with dinner reservations would need to be accommodated elsewhere. The hotel prided itself on its dining experience. This was a major blow. After 3 hours of frantic calls and arrangements, Jade had secured dinner reservations at nearby restaurants for all affected guests. She was in the middle of composing an email to hotel ownership explaining the situation when a knock sounded at her office door. Come in, she called, expecting Eliza or perhaps the fire inspector. Instead, Quincy entered, holding 2 takeout bags from Lucetta's. I heard about the fire, he said simply. Thought you might not have had time to eat. The unexpected kindness caught Jade off guard. That's incredibly thoughtful of you. He set the bags on her desk, the rich aroma of garlic and basil filling the room. I got the carbonara for you, and the tiramisu, of course. How did you know carbonara is my favorite? Jade asked, suddenly realizing how hungry she was. You recommended it with particular enthusiasm, he replied with a slight smile. I took a chance. They ate at her desk, the tension of the day slowly melting away as they talked. Quincy didn't ask about the fire or the inconvenience. Instead, he told her about a building he'd once worked on where they'd discovered a sealed room containing letters from the 1800s. The family had no idea, he explained, twirling pasta around his fork. 3 generations had lived there without knowing there was essentially a time capsule behind the wall. That's amazing, Jade said, genuinely enthralled. What happened to the letters? We had them preserved and returned to the family. They donated some to a local historical society. His expression grew thoughtful. That's the thing about old buildings, they hold stories. It's why I love what I do. And what exactly is it that you do? Jade finally asked directly. You know so much about historical architecture and preservation. Something flickered across Quincy's face, hesitation, perhaps. I work with old buildings, he said after a moment, helping restore them, making sure they are preserved properly for future generations. It wasn't a complete answer, but Jade didn't press. Instead, they finished their meal, and when Quincy left, her office felt strangely empty. The next day was Quincy's final day at the Harrington. Jade found herself checking her appearance more carefully than usual before heading downstairs, a fact that Eliza noticed with a knowing smirk. Looking extra nice for anyone in particular today, she teased. I always look professional, Jade countered, though she felt a blush rising to her cheeks. It's part of the job, MMHMM, Eliza hummed, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with Mr. Penthouse checking out today. He's a guest, Eliza, that's all. But even as Jade said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. Over the past 5 days, Quincy Adams had become something more than just a guest. What exactly, she wasn't sure, but the thought of him leaving created an unexpected hollow feeling in her chest. She didn't see Quincy all morning, which was probably for the best. She had work to do, a hotel to run, and the kitchen repairs to oversee. By noon, she had convinced herself that he had already checked out and left without saying goodbye. Just after 2 o'clock, however, he appeared at the reception desk where Jade was reviewing reservation reports. "I was hoping to catch you before I left," he said, setting his duffel bag down. "Checking out already?" Jade asked, trying to keep her voice light. "My flight's at 6, he explained. "I wanted to thank you personally for your hospitality. It's rare to find a hotel so well managed." "Just doing my job," Jade replied, though the compliment warmed her. "I hope you enjoyed your stay." "More than you know," Quincy said, his blue eyes holding hers. Then he hesitated, as if debating something internally. "Jade, I was wondering if," he was interrupted by Eliza rushing over, looking flustered. "Jade, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Lancaster is on the phone insisting she speak to you immediately about her upcoming birthday celebration." Mrs. Lancaster was one of their most valuable repeat clients, known for her extravagant parties and generous tips, but also for her demanding nature. Jade sighed. "I should take that, of course," Quincy said, stepping back. "I understand." "Wait," Jade said, making a quick decision. "Can you give me 5 minutes? Please don't leave yet." Quincy nodded, and Jade hurried to her office to take the call. Mrs. Lancaster's emergency turned out to be a question about whether the hotel could source specific exotic flowers for her party, a request Jade assured her they would handle. When she returned to the lobby 15 minutes later, her heart sank. Quincy was gone. At the desk, Eliza held out an envelope. "He left this for you," she said quietly. Jade took it, trying to mask her disappointment. Inside was a business card, simple white card stock with only Quincy Adams and a phone number printed in elegant type. On the back, he had written, "Thank you for showing me what true preservation looks like. Call me sometime." Jade stared at the card, a mixture of confusion and hope swirling within her. He wanted her to call him. For what? A date? Professional advice? She slipped the card into her pocket, determined to think about it later when she wasn't surrounded by staff. That evening, after most of the staff had gone home, Jade sat in her office researching Quincy Adams online. What she found made her gasp. Quincy Adams was the founder and CEO of Adams Restoration Group, a billion-dollar company specializing in the preservation and restoration of historical buildings. His projects included museums, government buildings, and historical landmarks across the country. There were few photographs of him. He was notoriously private, but the man in the sparse images was undoubtedly the same one who had eaten takeout carbonara at her desk. Jade leaned back in her chair, stunned. The man who had complimented her lobby and discussed architectural details had been evaluating the hotel with an expert's eye the entire time. Was that why he'd been there? Was the Harrington being considered for some kind of restoration project? Her phone rang, startling her. It was a New York number she didn't recognize. "Jade Morgan speaking," she answered professionally. "Jade, it's Quincy." His voice was warm through the line. "I hope I'm not calling too late." "No, not at all," she replied, her heart suddenly racing. "I was just doing some research, actually." There was a pause. "About me? I might have Googled you," Jade admitted. "You didn't mention you were the Quincy Adams." His soft laugh came through the phone. "Would it have changed how you treated me if I had?" Jade considered the question honestly. "Probably not how I treated you, but I might have been more nervous about showing you around the building." "That's exactly why I didn't say anything," he said. "I wanted to experience the hotel as a regular guest, see how it functioned without everyone trying to impress the billionaire." "So this was a business trip?" Jade asked, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "Initially, yes," Quincy admitted. "My company is considering partnering with your ownership group on several properties, and I wanted to see one of their hotels firsthand." "I see," Jade said, feeling strangely deflated. "But it became something else entirely when I met you," he continued quickly. "Jade, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, your passion for the hotel, your knowledge, your smile." I called because I'll be back in San Francisco next weekend, and I was hoping you might have dinner with me. Not at the hotel, not as manager and guest, just as Jade and Quincy. Jade's breath caught. Are you asking me on a date? I am, he confirmed. Unless that's completely inappropriate, in which case I apologize for I'd love to, Jade interrupted, a smile spreading across her face. You would, the relief in his voice was palpable. Yes, she said firmly, but on one condition. Name it, no talk of work, yours or mine. I want to get to know Quincy the person, not Quincy the restoration tycoon. His laugh was warm and genuine. Deal, though I warn you, outside of work I'm rather boring. I read historical fiction and collect vintage tools. That doesn't sound boring to me, Jade replied truthfully. It sounds like someone who appreciates history and craftsmanship. Someone I'd like to know better. Their dinner, the following weekend, stretched into 4 hours of conversation so engaging that they barely noticed the restaurant emptying around them. Quincy was even more fascinating outside the constraints of the hotel setting, passionate about his work, but also about literature, hiking, and surprisingly, baking bread, its chemistry and patience, just like restoration. Jade found herself sharing stories she rarely told anyone about growing up in foster care. How she'd worked her way through hospitality school as a housekeeper, her dream of someday owning her own small inn. By the end of the evening, when Quincy walked her to her door and kissed her goodnight, a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened into something that left her breathless, Jade knew this was the beginning of something significant. Over the next 6 months, they navigated a long-distance relationship, with Quincy flying to San Francisco whenever possible and Jade occasionally joining him in New York or at project sites around the country. She watched him in his element, directing restoration teams with a mixture of exacting standards and genuine respect for their craftsmanship. He supported her when she implemented new preservation-focused initiatives at the Harrington, earning the hotel recognition for its historical authenticity. When Adams Restoration officially partnered with the Harrington's ownership group, Quincy made it clear to everyone that Jade's position was not to be affected. Her talent had earned her that role long before he entered the picture. 1 year after they met, Quincy brought Jade to a small, dilapidated Victorian inn 2 hours north of San Francisco. What do you think? He asked as they stood on the overgrown lawn, looking at the building's neglected facade. It's beautiful, Jade breathed, seeing past the peeling paint to the strong bones beneath, but it needs a lot of work. About 6 months of restoration, Quincy agreed. The foundation is solid and most of the original features are intact. He reached for her hand. It's for sale. Jade turned to him confused. For Adams Restoration? No, he said quietly. For you, for us if you want. He squeezed her hand. You mentioned wanting to own your own inn someday. I thought maybe we could restore this place together and you could run it. It has 8 guest rooms, owner's quarters, and 5 acres of land. Jade stared at him, speechless. I know it's a big step, Quincy continued nervously, but this past year has shown me that what I want most isn't more buildings to restore or more business success. It's a life with you, Jade. A home we build together. Tears sprang to Jade's eyes. Quincy, before you answer, he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. There's something else I need to ask you. He dropped to one knee on the overgrown lawn, opening the box to reveal a vintage ring with a cushion-cut diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires. This ring belonged to my grandmother. Like this inn, it needs someone who appreciates its history and sees its potential. Jade Morgan, will you marry me? Jade knelt down in front of him, taking his face in her hands. Yes, she whispered. To the ring, to the inn, to building a life together, yes, to all of it. 2 years later, the Morgan Inn opened its doors, a meticulously restored Victorian that quickly became one of the most sought-after boutique accommodations in wine country. Jade ran the day-to-day operations, while Quincy balanced his company's projects with helping at the inn whenever possible. They married in the garden behind the inn, surrounded by friends and the staff from the Harrington who had become like family to Jade. In her vows, she thanked him for seeing the potential in both a flood-damaged hotel lobby and a woman who'd found her purpose in preserving beautiful spaces. In their owner's quarters that evening, as they watched the sunset from their private terrace, Quincy wrapped his arms around his wife. "Do you ever think about how different our lives might be if I hadn't booked that particular hotel?" he asked. "Or if you hadn't been so impressive that first day?" Jade turned in his arms to face him. "I prefer to think about how lucky we are that you did, and I was. The best investment I ever made," Quincy murmured against her hair. "What, the hotel partnership?" Jade teased. "No," he said, tipping her chin up to kiss her. "Taking a chance on complimenting the manager about her immaculate lobby floor." Jade laughed, the sound echoing across their property, their home, their future, built on a foundation as solid as the historical buildings they both loved.